All right, what is going on, guys? Welcome to another pre-PT chat live. This is where we help you get into PT school without wasting time, money, stress, anxiety, and everything in between. And if you are vibing with that, this is where you need to be. Go to preptgrind.com or follow us on all social media, and you'll find where to get started. But if you're watching on live or on replay, regardless if you are on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, what's going on, guys? You already know what to do. If you're back, welcome back. If you're new here, start by going to acceptanceguys.com, as you see here on the screen, to start with us. If you don't know where to start, if you don't know how to get started, if you don't know what to do, this is the best place to get started at acceptanceguys.com. It breaks everything down for you to know what to do. So if you're on TikTok Live, we are streaming on YouTube for our pre-PT chat live show. So if you want to hop on YouTube and join us there, join us over there. If you have questions, we'll have a Q&A section at the end. For those of you on TikTok who are rattling off questions right now, I love it. We'll get to you as soon as possible. But in the meantime, we'll be starting our show. What's going on YouTube? What's going on Instagram? And let's bring up Joseph is here, the also pre-PT grind. So welcome to the show. You guys, welcome Joseph to the show as well. How you doing? What's going on?
Doing good, brother. Doing good. We're ready. Let's get it.
Beautiful. All right. So as you guys know, we have segments to the show. Pre-PT Chat Live, we do have segments, and this is what we're going to be going on or going over today. Number one, what's happening in PT. Number two, think like a physical therapist. We'll have a pop quiz, or are you smarter than not a fifth grader, a physical therapist pop quiz. We'll do a quick PT program and application updates. There shouldn't be anything too new since last show. Then we're going to be talking about our main event, and our main event is low GPA. Can you still be a physical therapist? Or low GPA, you can still be a physical therapist. So we're going to be talking about low GPAs and something else that helps low GPA students get into physical therapy school. So on TikTok or Instagram, if you're a low GPA student, this is for you. If you're not a low GPA student, you probably still want to watch, because this is how a low GPA student can take your spot. That's all I'll say. All right, so let's get into segment number one. We're going to go over what is happening in physical therapy. So what we're going to do, I'm going to share my screen here. I think everyone can see it here. Let me just check on Instagram. Instagram, y'all doing all right? Brianna, what's going on? I see the nose. Yes, Kahoot. Brianna, Brian A., we will do Kahoot in a second. So first thing, let me take off this here. We're going to be talking about PT salaries. So this is from the Job Market Pulse. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here from UpDoc Media. So if you want some, there we go. I'm going to do this. So if you want some updated information, for those of you on TikTok who cannot see, go on over to YouTube and you can see my screen being shared, or you can go to Instagram and see that as well. But what we're talking about is PT salaries here on the show right now for this segment of physical therapy updates, or what's happening, because a lot of times you guys ask, what's the average salary? How much should I get expected to pay? But it ranges on so many things. So if you go to Job Market Pulse by UpDoc Media and you sign up for their newsletter and everything, you'll get an email every time they do this. And this is a screenshot or a screen share of one of the emails they sent out for 2023. So let's go over this real quick. They are showing occupational therapists, pharmacists, physical therapist assistants, nurses, and so on and so forth. But what we're going to focus on here is, of course, physical therapists and physical therapist assistants for the job setting. Okay. So physical therapists, where do physical therapists get paid the most? TikTok. Hop on over to YouTube. You can see the screen. They're saying that in acute care, physical therapists on average across all settings, all experience levels, all everything, right? On average, in acute care, a physical therapist would get paid around $81,000, almost $82,000. All right. In an acute neuro rehab setting, basically where this acute rehab setting specializes in neuro patients or people with spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries, stuff like that, they are getting paid $89,000 a year. Home health, 100K. Hospital outpatient, 80K. Industrial, 90K. Military, 105,000. Mixed setting, 81,000. Outpatient, 77. Outpatient neuro, 70. Pediatrics, 85,000. Pediatric home health seems to be the highest at 116. Pelvic health, 68. SNF or long-term acute care, $85,000, and that is just for physical therapists. All right, let me see if there's any comments here. No, we're good. Now for physical therapist assistants, acute care, 65,000. Acute care neuro rehab, 58,000. Home health, 80,000. Outpatient, 59. Pediatrics, 35. SNF long-term care facility, 60,000, and that is for physical therapist assistants. Now, a big thing, I'm not going to search for it on this job market pulse here because it'll take me a long time to find it. What they say is that the standard deviation usually is around $14,000 to $16,000. All right, it's around $14,000 to $16,000. So if you're seeing any of these numbers here and you don't like them, well, depending on how much value you can bring to the marketplace, you can get paid $14,000 to $16,000 more, or possibly less, depending on a lot of factors. So just because you see this number does not mean it is stuck. I want that to be clear. Is that clear, everybody? TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, is that clear? Just because you see this number, or you see a number for nursing down here, or speech language pathologist, or OT, does not mean you will get paid that number. It is flexible, and this is just an average. All right. I fell into that trap when I was a pharmacy major. Don't fall into that same trap as me, because that ended up costing me a lot of money and a lot of time. All right. So take that into consideration. I know you guys have a lot of questions, as you should, about salary, but that is the job market pulse. Joseph, with salaries, with how much you get paid, we're seeing these numbers. What are your thoughts that come to mind that you either would have wished you knew, or you wish or hope other students would know with this?
Oh, you just said it. When you were talking about how the biggest difference is how much value are you willing to bring to either your employer or the marketplace, that's it, right? So like when you were talking about how there's that standard deviation of like 16K or something like that, like that's huge, right? So if it's like, if the average is 80 and you can get like 96K or 100K, then you just have to ask different questions. I think the biggest thing for us as students is not just to assume that it's just going to happen. Like you graduating and having a doctorate, or you being a PTA, if you're going down the PTA route, or OT or whatever, doesn't naturally mean that you're going to get paid a lot more money. You got to solve a problem for the person paying you the money. It's got to make sense for them, right? So, so you said it, and I hope they caught it, because that was it. And that's where you can have people that are in those settings making much more than what you were showing. However, standard deviations go both ways. That's where you can also have people getting paid less than the numbers you just showed, because they're not bringing enough value to the person they're working for, whether it's your boss or your patients or the setting you're in. And obviously we can go down a whole rabbit hole for that, but I hope they caught that piece, because that's really the key, is figuring out whose problems do I need to solve and what problems they got and what skills do I need to develop so that I can get paid more. And if you do that, there's no reason why you shouldn't be getting paid more out of school. But we all think that a doctorate is enough, which it's not. So you pretty much said it. Love it.
Perfect. If there's any questions on that topic, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, drop them in the chat, and we'll make sure we get them at the Q&A section of the show. I see Facebook on here. What's going on, Facebook? Good to see you. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for tuning into the show. Next part of the show is, are you smarter than a physical therapist, or think like a physical therapist? So Joseph, when you were a pre-PT, talk to me about, did anybody ever, when you were doing observation hours or when we were at Andrews University, did anyone ever talk to you about how to think like a PT? Were your observation hours like that? Would have helped you when you were a pre-PT? Kind of talk to them about that.
I wish I would have had it, but I didn't get it, right? So when I was doing observation hours as a pre-PT, it was a lot of like really observing. I'm like watching and trying to put the pieces together myself, but I had no idea what was going on in the PT's mind. I had no idea why they were deciding to do one treatment versus another. I had no idea why this person after an ACL could finally get on a treadmill versus this other person. No clue. And a lot of those pieces didn't make sense to me until I was in PT school. So I asked a lot of questions, and part of it was the fact that the PTs I was working with were super busy. But nah, that's why we love to do that now. We enjoy sharing that side with our students now because we wish we would have had that when we were pre-PT. So if I had learned to think like them, it would have made my observation hours less boring though. Because now because that's what makes a PT a PT. It's what's going on in here. And so no, I never got that opportunity, but I did ask a lot of questions. So I tried my best. However, that's something that would have been really, really, really a game changer if I had access to that before. So yeah, how about yourself?
Yeah, I wish I would have had this too. That's why we started observation or virtual observation hours back when we did. We still technically have them now, and that's why we're kind of doing this part of the show as well, so you guys can understand not just how much PTs make, but what you'll actually be doing in your job and like what's going on when you see the PT. You see the PT typing, you see the physical therapist pushing on muscles in people, but what is going on to why they're actually doing that? So this helps a lot. That was great. That was great. All right. So now we're going to get into, are you smarter than a physical therapist? Let's do this. I am not sharing the right screen, and the timer is running. Let's do this. Hold on. I have to start it over. But I gave myself a minute. Okay, here we go. Okay. What is the most common injury in the United States? Y'all see that? Yeah. What's the most common injury in the United States?
What do I think it is?
Correct. Hip fracture, collarbone fracture, ACL tear, or ankle sprain.
I'm gonna say ankle sprain because you can roll your ankle anytime. ACL, you got to beat. Hip fracture is up there if you got like the geriatric population, but I probably say ankle sprain. I could be wrong though.
All right.
Do you know the answer?
I did make.
I was about to see if you would guess it.
All right. So we're going ankle sprain. That is correct. That is correct. Let me check YouTube and Facebook. We're all good. Instagram's good. TikTok's good. Oh, Brian A got it wrong. I don't know.
What did Brian A say?
Hip fracture.
Oh. Hip. I mean, listen, like geriatric population is going up. So maybe in a few years it'll be hip fractures. You never know.
Maybe. All right, next one. Let's go into the next question. What is the biggest muscle in the body? You should have done the game version. Brianna, I'm gonna have to work on that. With all the screens and tabs I got, I'm gonna have to. And sending like the invites out, you're gonna help me with that on our next call. Oh shoot. What's the biggest muscle in the body? I did not do the timer right on this one. What do you think?
It's lats or hamstrings. It's one of those two. What?
Gluteus maximus.
Dang, I failed that class. Like biggest in terms of length or in terms of like mass?
Just overall size. Mass.
Oh, okay. I guess.
I messed up on the timer on that one. I should have gave myself more time. And I probably messed up on the next timer as well. So we'll see. I think I only gave
10 seconds, right?
20 seconds instead of a minute.
Let's see what happens.
All right. What is the smallest muscle in the body? Yes, Brian A. I know. 20 seconds. Masseter, stapedius muscle, flexor digitorum, or lateral rectus. Lateral rectus is a muscle in the eye. Masseter, stapedius, however you pronounce it, flexor digitorum, or lateral rectus. I know the answer, so I'm gonna pick it. It's the stapedius muscle. It is.
What did Brian A say?
She's just razzing on me because I didn't fix the timer. Even though I know how to fix the timer, I fixed it for the first question. I did not. Yes, she is right though. So she picked however you pronounce it, stapedius muscle.
Stapedius.
All right, Instagram, y'all doing well? Let me check YouTube and Facebook. All doing well. Perfect. We have one or two more questions. Two more questions. Where is the stapedius muscle? 20 seconds. Inner ear. Is it in your jaw? Is it in your hand? Or is it in your foot? Where is it?
What's Brian A saying? I want to hear Brian A's answer.
She is saying ear on TikTok. Brian A, you might have to come to YouTube so Joseph can see your comments too. Ear.
Brian A, I'm trying to see what you're saying.
Yeah, I did kind of spoil this one a little bit. All right. One more question on the segment. Are you smarter than a physical therapist? All right. How many programs are in the US? How many physical therapy programs are in the United States? Over 100, over 150, over 250, or over 350? How many programs are in? How many physical therapy programs are in the United States?
I'm going to go 250 plus. It can't be more than 350. I know it's close to 300.
250 plus is correct.
Yeah, let's get it. Because it's close to 300 right now. So I was like, there's no way. It'll be 350 plus soon, though. I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
I would not be surprised. They're going up like crazy. So
that was cool. That was fun. On the next show, I'll make sure every single timer is longer because I know there's a delay on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all that stuff. So
they're probably still answering question 4 right now.
Exactly. There we go. There she is.
Hey, I see it.
All right, next segment. Let's do a short update or check the updates. Let's say that. Let's check the updates on program application updates and info sessions and stuff like that. Let's do this first. There we go. So if you guys do not know how to get to this page that you'll see in a second, TikTok, we are on PTCast directory. If you go to ptcastdirectory.org, or if you Google PTCast directory, APTA, or anything like that, it's basically pretty simple to find. Or if you're on YouTube, if you're following us on YouTube and Instagram right now, you see my screen. So this is just a community feed. It's like a Facebook feed, and this is where you can see some updates. So not too many updates since the last pre-PT chat live. This is basically an update from Plymouth State University saying they have an information session on February 6th. So if you're interested in going to Plymouth State University, not sure where that is, but they have an info session. Let's see where that is. Let's see where that is real quick. In the meantime, next, Bowling Green State is in Ohio, I believe. They're having an open house on February 19th. So if anyone is interested or around the Ohio area, Bowling Green State University has a DPT program, and they will be having an open house. And I think this is where we left off last time. Arizona, or AT still, Arizona School of Health Professions is having an open, or had an open house already. So nothing too crazy, just 2 updates since we last had the show. If you want more updates from a specific school, I highly recommend you reach out to your school, email them. If they have any social media or any podcasts, find them there as well and see if they have any updates there. But this is just one place where you can find updates. PTCast directory. TikTok, I see your questions. We're almost there. We got our main event of the show. Then we'll get to your questions on our Q&A session. All right. Stop sharing there. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Next segment, main event of the show. So we are talking about if you have a low GPA, how you can still be a physical therapist. Low GPA, can you still be a physical therapist? Low GPA, do you still have a chance to be a physical therapist? Low GPA, what can you do? So on this segment of the show, we're going to talk about something a little bit different and why our students have been successful with still getting into physical therapy school, even though they may have started with a low GPA. All right. Let's see what screen I like. We'll do this one. So with this low GPA, if you guys have a low GPA, say low GPA in whatever chat, whatever platform you're on. So we know. I know there's a little delay. But if you have a low GPA, or if you're scared of a low GPA, or if you think you have a low GPA, or if you think you're not good enough, Just say low GPA. Say I don't think I'm good enough. Say I need some low GPA help. Say I still want to get into physical therapist. So we know where you're coming from. But here's what I want you guys to understand with this low GPA thing. I want you to understand that something called grade trend is more important than your GPA. Or grade trend is seen as more impressive than your GPA. Why is that? Because if you really understand what a GPA is, it's a grade point average. It is a point on a plot. It's a point on a graph. And that point on a graph is a combination or accumulation of everything you've done up until that point on the graph. It's like, okay, after high school, from college, community college, blah, 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 everything you've done to this date and time, it is 1 point on the graph. However, a grade trend is multiple points on that graph. It's like a line graph. It shows how you got to that point. So if a GPA point average is just 1 point, a grade trend is multiple points. It can go down, it can go up, it can stay up, it can stay down. Is that making sense? Let me know if that's making sense so far. And the school pays attention to the direction of that trend or the direction of your grades. So it's not only 1 point in time that matters, aka your GPA that matters, it's also the trend of how you got to that GPA. That matters as well. Hope that's making sense. So here it is, for example, a 3.4 student who started with a 4.0 GPA is different than a 3.4 student who started with a 2.7 GPA. Right? Who would you rather accept? Who looks better? They both have a 3.4 GPA. They both have a 3.4 GPA. That point in time is the same. TikTok is saying, I see, it makes sense. Perfect. But who looks better? Somebody started with the 4.8 and dropped down to a 3.4. Somebody started with a 2.7, went up to a 3.4. Obviously, the person who started from low and went up to a 3.4 is much more impressive. Oh my God, how did they do that? They had so much grit. They had so much talent. They had so much perseverance. They learned so much. Whereas the student who started with the 4.0 and went down over time is like, oh, what happened there? Something serious in the family? Something serious with them? Did they have an injury? Or did they just slack off? They don't know. All they're going off of is the grade trend. That's why starting with the low GPA, 1 point on the graph, is not the end for low GPA applicants. You can still improve your grade trend and be impressive. So high GPA applicants, whatever you think is a high GPA, needs to be aware of like falling grade trends as well, because your spot could be taken by somebody else who has an upward grade trend or a rising grade trend. Does that make sense? So understanding this whole grade trend thing tells you what to focus on. I think it's empowering. Many people are like, oh my gosh, now I got to worry about something else. It's a GPA and a grade trend and something else and my essays and my GREs. No. This is like ammo. This is a tool to help you get in because now you know what they want. So now you know what to focus on, because an upward or rising grade trend will be much more important than any volunteer hours you have, any observation hours you have, any certifications or extracurriculars you have, because that's what they're looking at. And why is that? Last points. Why is that important? Because your observation hours, your volunteer hours, your extracurriculars, your certifications, they do not show how well you're going to do in school. They just don't. You can get 1,000 observation hours and have straight Fs. You can get 10,000 observation hours and have a falling grade trend. Why would they accept you with 10,000 observation hours and a falling grade trend? What? It doesn't make sense, especially since you're going to school. Your next step is school. You're not becoming a physical therapist yet. You're going to school, so they want to see how you've done in school. So that's the big thing you need to understand. So grades aren't everything, but this is why they're important, because you are going to school. Improving your academic capabilities is most important. It's not everything, but it's most important. So I need you guys to know whether you have a high GPA, low GPA, that grade trend is just as important, or if not more important, than a grade point in time. So Joseph, with all those thoughts, with who you've seen, with who you've taught, with who you've helped, with who you've talked to, what is your opinion, or what have you seen with students having a low GPA and also getting into physical therapy despite that low GPA?
Man, I think you hit it right on the money. The part that I've seen a lot of that, I think is important to understand is that, like, when you understand why the schools are looking at these things like grade trend, that's the answer, right? So, like, for a lot of students that hear that we help students get in with a low GPA, they see that as an excuse, right? So they hear someone that has like a 3.2 and they're like, all right, that person had a 3.2, I'm good. But you literally just nailed it. You said one 3.2 can be two different things depending on where you started and what it looks like. And I feel like a lot of times we want to hear that someone did it with a lower grade as an excuse, as opposed to understanding, wait a minute, like, that doesn't matter. Like, what do the schools want and why? Like, what are the schools afraid of? And with the students that we've worked with or the students that we've seen get in, it's just because they understood, like, the school's afraid that I won't be able to do well in their program. And if I get kicked out, that looks bad on me and them, right? Because their percentage of success goes down and they don't want that. And so once you start to understand that you are a risk, like, to the school, you are a risk unless you can show them that the version of you now or the version of you that's applying is ready to handle the academic intensity of PT school, then that's when you'll understand that grade trend is important. So don't slip up, but also understand that if you're at that 2.7 or 2.6 or 2.5, then there's still things that are within your control, right? Don't just say, all right, I guess that's it, I can't be a physical therapist, but also be careful of saying, well, other people have gotten in with a low GPA, let me just try my luck. That's where we get people that have applied 4+ years in a row and gotten rejected. And so grade trend is massive, but also seeing it from the perspective of the school has been huge, because once you understand that that's what they want, they want you to do well in school, and they're looking for evidence, proof in your current journey that you can do well in PT school, then everything changes. And that's when you avoid doing 2,000 observation hours because you think that'll help them. Or my favorite is, if they just like interviewed me, they would know my story and they would know that I really would make a great physical therapist. But you just hit it, man. You're like, no, the next step is still school. and so unless I'm addressing that, then I could very well get kicked off their list. So if y'all want to avoid rejections, then everything Casey just said is spot on. And that's what we've seen with a ton of our students. So that's it. I love it.
There we go. So that was the main event. How you can still get into physical therapy school with a low GPA, or can you still get in, or if you can still get in, all that stuff around low GPAs. That was the main event, so that can empower you and not discourage you. So yes, you can still get into physical therapy school, even if you've started with a low GPA, because of something called grade trend or grade trend average, or GTA. How about that? All right. So hope you guys enjoyed that main event. TikTok, I'm coming for your questions. Instagram, if you have questions as well. Let's get into this Ask Me Anything part of the show, of whatever you guys want to know on how to get into PT school and become a physical therapist. But first, if you have not gotten our acceptance guide already, go to acceptanceguides.com. That is the best place to get started with us. That's the best place to start your journey. That's the best place to know all the details of what to do, so that you can become a physical therapist. After you get our guides, our team will make sure you're all taken care of, and you'll be on your way and one step closer to becoming a physical therapist. So that's the first thing. Then we also have another class, if you guys are interested in money at all, how to start making money now in school, or you're worried about the debt to income ratio in physical therapies. If you go to, I have to put this on the screen, but if you go to moneyinclasstraining.com, that is February 11th, right?
Yep. 2 p.m. Eastern time.
2 p.m. Eastern time. So I'll put that in here, classtraining.com. There we go. And we're going to put February 11th. There we go. All right, perfect. So we got some questions on the way here. Let's get into it. Q&A section of the show. Can you still be a physical therapist, Joseph, if you go to a 2-year school to be a PTA? What's the transition? I'll ask that again. Can you still be a physical therapist if you go to a 2-year school to be a PTA? What is the transition?
So there's two ways. And Brianna's here. So there's like programs that you can use to kind of transition, but they're very few. For most PTAs that become PTs, which is what I'm hearing, you go to PTA school, become a PTA, and then now you want to be a physical therapist. For most, because there's a lot that are trying to do that, you would just have to apply like everybody else and apply to physical therapy school. But you do have things that are working in your favor because you already have it, especially if you did well in PTA school and whatnot. There's some strengths that you can play to your advantage. So there are bridge programs, but for the most part, you're going to have to apply like everybody else. Case, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't like bridge programs at all. It's not that there's anything wrong
They're
with
actually
them.
more competitive.
It's more competitive.
They're harder to get into than a regular PT program. Nobody realizes that. They think it's like an easy shift, but it's not at all.
Yeah, it's really not, and it costs just as much. It takes just as much time. So if you want to transition, you just transition like everyone else. You just go to PT. You just apply to PT school. It's the same process. So I hope that makes sense, TikTok. Ryan, let me know if that answered your question. But great question. Great question. Next one. What is the difference between physical therapists and athletic trainers? What do you think?
The biggest difference I would say is with physical therapists, you're actually rehabbing someone from an injury to 100%, right? With an athletic trainer, you're not really dealing with injuries per se, but you are dealing with performance, right? So strengthening, performing better, and things like that. But when it comes to injuries, that's when now you're going to a physical therapist. That's probably one of the easiest ways or one of the simplest ways to differentiate between the two. How would you define it?
Yeah, I define physical therapy as we improve function and movement before and or after an injury. Whereas athletic trainers, there is a lot of overlap, and athletic trainers are expanding. So if there's any athletic trainers that listen to this, just bear with us. We're trying to make this simple, right? Where athletic trainers usually do that mostly with just athletes to keep it simple. To keep it simple. Yes, there are a bunch of nuances. Yes, the pay is different, the board exam's different, the schooling is different. I get it. But the main difference is athletic trainers is in the name. Mostly work with athletes. Physical therapists mostly work with the rest of the population plus athletes. So hope that helps to keep it simple. If you have any follow-up questions about that, Ethan, let us know if you're still on, and we'll be more than happy to help. We got a YouTube question. What is the best major for college from Jackson? Thanks for hopping on, Jackson. Joseph, what you think?
Jackson, the easiest one. If you want to be a physical therapist, the best major is either the easiest one or the one that intrigues you the most. And the reason for that is because if you do something super complicated, it just makes getting into physical therapy school more tricky if that's what you want. Now, if you don't know if you want to be a PT, then maybe your selection of a major has to do with maybe what you might be interested in. But the easy answer is the easiest route. And now, if I were to go back in college, my answer would actually probably be more of like a psychology route because I actually love the psychology part of how people function, but that's just because I'm fascinated with the brain. But now, if the goal is to become a PT, the goal is to get into PT school, then take the easiest route so that you can. And it sounds like a scapegoat answer, but no, like it's PT school is going to be hard as is, so you have enough time to focus on your prereqs, do really well on them, and not let that be a barrier when you're applying to PT school. Case, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the reason you need to pick the easiest one, to Joseph's point, is because they did not ask for any certain major. It's not in their requirements. So why not take the easiest route? Like they didn't say you have to be an exercise sci. They didn't say you have to be kines. They didn't say neuroscience. They didn't say any of that. They said, give me the classes. So, okay, give them the classes and choose the easiest major that has the other easiest classes you have to get. It's just how it is. I wish, because this was my question when I was rejected, I was taking harder classes because I was pre-pharmacy major. And I was like, well, I had a B in biology and other people had A, and what'd you guys have to take? Intro to bio? And I was like, well, isn't that like, she was like, no. And I was very disappointed to say the least. So to Joseph's point, any easiest major. So hope that helps. Shout out to the 5 people on YouTube. I definitely appreciate y'all hopping on. Hit the like button. I appreciate y'all coming in and out. And TikTok, thank you for the 872 likes on TikTok Live. Appreciate you guys as well. Let's get into the next question. Instagram, y'all are all good. Next question from TikTok. Let's do this one. Any tips on memorizing, origin, insertion, innervation, and action?
So, man, the best ways for me were, so I'm a very visual person. So, the way we used to do it was, especially with origins and insertions, we used to use like a string. And so we'd like find the skeletons. And then for each muscle part, we'd literally like take the string and attach it to one part, and then to where, where it originates, where it inserts. And then based off of the way the string would move or pull, we would kind of be able to also know what the movement would be, if the muscle tightened up or if it relaxed. And so for me, it was all visual. It had to be visual. Like, it was visual and hands-on. And so between that and then also like having like a lab partner, somebody that I could actually like practice on, those are the two biggest ways. Because now when I was in a lecture exam, or like even a lab exam, or cadavers actually as well, but I would always go back to those basics. And so to this day, that's how I still know a lot of mine, is just from that visual. Case, how'd you do it?
Before I knew how to study the way I learned in PT school, I just did it over and over and over again. I just did a bunch of repetitions and I just hammered it home. I think one of the big things that helped me trying to think back to it is actually understanding what the definitions of those were first. So what is an origin? What is insertion? What is innervation? What is action? And that helped me along the way, even though that sounds very simple now, kind of put the pieces together. Over time, then it became like active recall strategies, spaced repetition, Feynman technique, making stories, music, rhymes, acronyms around it as well. That definitely helped with learning those two. So great question. Great question.
Fantastic question.
Let's take a couple more. We're running good on time. This is going perfect. Next question from TikTok. What is grade trend, GTA, and how does it work? Sure, we'll go back over this in just a second. Let me make sure Instagram is good. Perfect. So grade trend, Chris on TikTok. And for those of you who are on TikTok, appreciate the 1.1K likes. If you want to hop over to YouTube and see the screen, I know you guys can hear Joseph, but there you go. Now you can see Joseph. Instagram, YouTube, everybody say hi to TikTok over there. So question from Chris was grade trend and how does it work? So grade trend is a trend over time. It's like a line graph. It can go up, it can go down, it can maintain the same over time. So it's a trend over time. So grade trend is literally what it says. What is the trend of your grades over a certain amount of time? Whereas GPA, technically it shows what happened in the past, but it is just one point in time. So grade trend, you can also think about it, is multiple GPA points. So how we kind of explained it a little bit earlier was that a grade trend can show an applicant in a different light than a GPA. So for instance, there could be two applicants. Applicant one started with a 4.0 GPA, and now they ended with a 3.4. That is a grade trend. That is a downward grade trend. Whereas applicant two, they started with a 2.7 GPA, and they went up to a 3.4 GPA. That is a positive grade trend. Even though they both have the same GPA. They both have a 3.4 GPA, but which student looks better and which student makes the school more comfortable with accepting them is the one with a rising grade trend. So even though somebody started with a low GPA, they can improve or even beat out a student who started with a higher GPA. And schools look at that. They're very aware. They're very smart. They have studies on you guys. So it's not just the GPA that matters. It is the GTA, or grade trend average, that matters as well, because that tells a different story about the student. So Chris, I hope that helps and makes sense. And if anybody else has questions, let us know. Next question from Ryan. Should you worry more about good grades or class difficulty? like AP or honors classes?
Grades
Maybe.
all day. Grades all day. Grades. I just I I personally didn't do any honors classes, and I had friends that did, and they got rejected when they applied because their classes were more intense, and the schools just factored in their GPA. And so I guess part of it is also like why am I taking the honors classes? If I think that somehow makes me look better, that doesn't matter as much to the school as you think it does. So grades over the intensity level, so honors and all that stuff. So those are my thoughts on that. Case, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's grades. It's definitely grades, Ryan. I see why many people think it will look better, because kind of the same thing happened to me, but it's just not what they care about. They want the classes they want. They don't care if you went to Harvard or you have honors classes or you have AP classes or whatever. There
Perfect.
might be two schools out of the 297 plus out there who care about it, but a vast majority they just don't. It's not. It takes too much time, it takes too much effort, it takes too much work, it takes too much brain power for them to be like, oh, this person took an honors and blah blah blah. It just doesn't make sense for them. It just make it easy on them, take the easiest classes and take the classes that are required, and that'll make your life easier too. So grades all the way, grades all the way. Thanks for liking the live, Chris said that helped. Perfect. Perfect. As we wrap up, we'll take any last questions. But as we wrap up again, remember we have our acceptance guides at acceptanceguides.com, or go to our website and you can find them. This is for the people who are very new to us, whether you're on live, replay, TikTok, whatever. And you're like, I don't know where to start. I don't even know what this is. GPA, what is that? I don't, classes, what is that? I don't know what to do. It's okay. Acceptanceguides.com. That is the best place to start. Go there, get the free guides. They're free. Just download them. You guys know how the internet works. It's nothing too crazy. And that's where we will start to help you. Next thing we have going on in the next couple weeks is for those of you interested in money and those of you, I guess, kind of weary or kind of scared or apprehensive about PT because of the debt to income ratio, and you have all these money questions. If you go to moneyinclasstraining.com, we're having a free class teaching you all about what you guys are not ever going to be taught about money and how to start making money now. So this question of, is PT worth it? Is it not? Can I go to expensive school? Not all this money stuff will start to make more sense to you. So that's coming up sooner than I expected, in 13 days, maybe 14 days, something like that, or 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Two
Oh
weeks
yeah,
from today.
2 weeks from today. And that is at 2 p.m. Eastern time. If you go to moneyinclasstraining.com, you'll see the sign up and everything like that. We'll take care of you there. Any other announcements I missed before the last couple questions?
No, I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it. Solid questions too.
All right. Perfect. All right, last ones. Nate, thanks for jumping on. Appreciate you. Thanks for the 1.3 likes on TikTok. TikTok, if you didn't know, we have a full show going on called Pre-PT Chat Live on YouTube and all the other social media platforms we're on. So does being a licensed massage therapist help with getting into a PTA or PT program?
It helps some. So think about it like this. In your journey, there's things that you guys have done that if you learn how to communicate them well and leverage them well, they do help, right? In the same way that working as a PT aide helps, in the same way that being a PTA already, or being a trainer, like all those things help. It's just a matter of how do I package it? How do I present it to them? How do I talk about it if I'm talking about it during my essays or during my interviews? But it helps some. The danger, though, is thinking that alone, like you just saying it in your application, somehow gives you this leg up over everybody else. And I feel like that's what most people think. That same with like being a physical therapy assistant. I think a lot of people are just like, if I just slap this on my application, it'll make me look real good. And that's where it's dangerous, because it doesn't quite work like that. But in the same way that a PT aide or a PTA or a trainer, a massage therapist can, like being a massage therapist can help you. You just have to learn how to package it well, which is why, like with our students, we really focus on that, whether it's supplemental essays or their interviews and learning how to answer some of those questions. But you just saying it, It's like stacking a whole bunch of experiences in your resume and hoping that somehow that makes you look amazing. It just tells them you've done stuff. It doesn't tell them enough about whether or not you'll actually be a good fit for their program and whether or not you'll actually make it through their program, because that's what they care about the most. So that's my perspective on that based off what we've seen with our students. Case, what are your thoughts?
Perfect. I loved it. I loved it. That was perfect. Nate. Hope that helped. Hope you can hear and see Joseph as well. But that was it. It's not the experience itself, it's what you've learned from it and what you can talk about from it. That makes all the difference. So I don't care if you have a licensed massage therapist certification. I don't care if you went to space. I don't care if you were in the White House. If you just walk in there like, oh, I have this thing, it doesn't matter to them. They're like, so what? How will that help me? So as long as you explain how that would help you or help them or help you in the future, that's all that really matters. One more question from Drew. Thanks for hopping on, Drew, on TikTok. Is there a certain GPA that will not be accepted? Certain GPA that will not be accepted. What you think?
So, first of all, we have to see what that GPA is. Now, are there GPAs that won't be accepted as is? Well, yes, of course. Right. So if you have a 1.4 or a 1.7 right now, will a school accept you? Not right now, because you're a risk, right? To them, they will say you're not going to make it through our doctorate program, right? However, we have had students start with GPAs as low as a 1.7. We had a student, her name was Trisha Martin, and Trisha started with a 1.7. Now, did she stay there? No. We've had students that have started with as low as a 2.4. We had Ben Kim. He started with a 2.4. Did he stay there? No. We had students start with a 2.54, 2.6. And so a lot of it has to do with, number one, we have to get a little bit more detailed on like what is that GPA? And then more importantly, what do I still have control over? Right. So and if it's a prerequisite GPA, oh, you got a ton of control over that because prereqs are over a smaller number of classes. So if I got like 5 C's and a D, if I change those 5 C's and a D to A's, what does that do to my prereq GPA? Like we had a student, Taylor Kong. So she's a physical therapist now, but she was one of our clients. The first time she applied, she got rejected because her prerequisite GPA was a 2.7, right? The second time she applied, she had worked with our team. She retook all her prereqs that were C's or below and had a 3.7 the second time she applied and got accepted. Why? Because of grade trend. Because the schools were like, oh, yeah, you're ready for our program. We actually trust that if we give you a seat, you'll actually finish, which is what we care about. And so if you're thinking about it as my GPA is low, will they accept it? Maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. It's a matter of what can I still control? And then also which schools should I apply to? Because that's the other part. Depending on your GPA, there's certain schools that are going to be a no-go. And so, and that's where some of our sub 3.0 GPA students have had to do. Because like Ben Kim never had a 3.0, but he still had a 2 point something when he applied for his overall GPA. So the schools he chose gave him the benefit of the doubt for his overall, but they were very locked in for his prereq. He still had to crush it with a GRE. And so if you're going to be passive about it, then I would just say pick a different career. But if you're not going to be passive about it and you're going to say, you know what, there's things I can control, I'm willing to learn that, then one, we can help you. That's where I would go to the link that Casey said, acceptanceguides.com. And two, you can now focus on saying, cool, which classes can I retake and which schools should I be applying to when I do apply? And when you do that, now you have way more control. And we've seen tons of students get in after starting with a low GPA for that reason. So, Case, what are your thoughts?
There we go. That was it. This was Drew. So, Drew, if you're still on, hope that helped. Hope that made sense. Then we got one more question before we wrap up from Chris again. If you're rejected, do they tell you what the main reason is or why you weren't accepted? What's your last thoughts on that?
Depends on the school. Here's the biggest thing I want you to think about. And then Casey, I want you to go in on this because I know that was your experience the first time you applied, right? So it depends on the school. Some schools won't tell you a thing. You will ask them for feedback. They will not give it to you. What I will say though, is most schools tell you what you already knew. So don't expect the school to give you some rocket science answer. They're going to tell you, yeah, retake your GRE, get a better GRE score, get better grades. And so if you already know those things ahead of time, Why not do those things now as opposed to waiting for them to tell you, right? The thing I used to tell some of our clients a few years ago, I haven't said it in a bit, but I should probably start saying it again, is whenever someone was getting ready to apply to PT school, I would ask them, if you got rejected this next cycle and you had to apply next year again, what would you change? And if they gave me a list of answers and they said, oh, I would take this, I would retake this class, and then I would do this, and then I would do this. I'm like, okay, so we're applying this cycle without controlling everything in our power, is what you're telling me, right? And they're like, ooh. So a lot of times we already know what those things are. And also sometimes it's that we completely chose the wrong schools, because you can choose the wrong schools. And there's some schools that will give you a much better chance, and other schools that are a no-go. You are not a match for every single program. So that's my answer. Obviously, it gets a little bit more detailed, which is why we work with students directly to help them figure out what their specific path is. But that's my take for right now. Case, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you nailed that as well. So the thing is, with schools, they don't have to tell you. That's the sucky part about it. And why they don't tell you is because it's business and they want to keep you on a string just in case they need another customer. As cutthroat as it sounds, that's
a fact.
It's just how it is. So the reason they're not telling you is because they don't know if somebody's going to accept their spot, accept their acceptance, or keep them on the wait list, or have them between them and another school and then not choose them at the last second. Then they're going to need another customer to get some money from. So that's why they don't want to tell you, because if they tell you you're rejected or not, you're going to move on when they don't want you to move on. It sucks. It sucks, but that's just the way it is. And nobody will probably explain it to you like that, but that's just how it is. That's just how it is.
It's a business.
It is a business. We got a question from Instagram at the last minute, so why not take it? I recently graduated from college with an overall GPA of 2.6, but my major GPA is a 3.2. Should I mention this in your application? Want me to read it again?
Yeah, one more time.
I recently graduated from college with an overall GPA of a 2.6. However, my major GPA is a 3.2. Should you mention this in your application?
They'll see everything. When you're entering your when you go to apply to school, when you're entering in everything on PTCast, they'll be able to see everything because it's going to mirror all your transcripts. Do they care what your major GPA was? Absolutely not. Do they care more about your overall GPA and your prerequisite GPA? Yes, they do. So truly the 2.6 is the one that we're dealing with. If that's your overall GPA. But congratulations on your major GPA being higher, but the schools are looking at overall and prerequisite as the main ones. And that's what they're going to see, because they're going to compare that on the transcripts, which means that now the schools you select may have to be different from what you had in mind. So if you're applying to schools that say you have to have a 3.0 minimum for the overall GPA, and that's the only schools you're applying to, and you get rejected by all of them, that's where now you can be stuck and think, oh, I'll never be a PT. It's like, no, actually, there's other schools that don't need a 3.0, but then it's also, what can I still control? What classes can I retake? And then also, what's my prerequisite? So that's the one I want to know. If you were on a call with one of our coaches, the first question is like, what's the prereq? Like, let's see the full picture, because that tells us what play we need to run, just like sports. And so, but that's what we've seen. So great question. Case, what are your thoughts?
You got it. You got it all. You got it all. It's that overall GPA that we need to improve. And you recently graduated. So yeah, well, there needs to be a lot of work that needs to be done, and a lot of strategy too. So that's the big thing. Ashley Baylor says hi on TikTok.
Hey, what's up, Ashley?
Last question. I'll take this one real quick. What year of college should you start getting observation hours for physical therapy school? You should start yesterday. There is no too early of a time to start with observation hours. So start yesterday. Instagram, Joseph says, thank you. Instagram says, thank you for the answer to the question. And we are all good. So thank you guys so much for hopping on this pre-PT chat. Our next one will probably be sometime this week, maybe a Wednesday, maybe a Thursday. We'll make sure it's announced. If you guys are watching this on replay, Thank you for watching this on replay. And again, go to acceptanceguides.com if you're getting started with us. And if you want to learn more about money stuff, make sure you go to moneyinclasstraining.com. And that's where we're going to be talking all about money in 2 weeks from now. So thank you guys for joining. We will see you guys later.